I fed an AI system 23 years of my dream journals, 288 entries, 225,000 words. What I learned surprised me. Individual dreams are noisy, but over the decades, patterns emerged. To my surprise, these aligned with key events in my waking life. The models detected clear arc. Early dreams were about navigating the world, later dreams about navigating myself. The strange part? The AI wasn't told anything about my life, yet it still detected the chapters. We've crossed a threshold where decades of personal writing can be analyzed in a single pass. Here's an example excerpt. This analysis spans approximately 2003 to 2026, which is long enough to detect genuine cognitive evolution rather than short-term fluctuation. For years, I had this archive of journals. What I didn't have was a way to actually analyze them. The barrier used to be tooling. Now, the barrier is simply whether you saved the data. Here's another example excerpt from one of the reports. Your dream corpus exhibits a clear directional shift across 3 distinct cognitive phases. What used to require custom NLP pipelines can now be done with one prompt and a large corpus. This experiment uses 288 dream journal entries spanning 23 years. In total, that's about 225,000 words, large enough to hide patterns that are impossible to see entry by entry. The models were given only the dream entries, no biography, no timeline, no context about my waking life. They had no idea what was happening in my conscious world while these dreams were being recorded. Yet they still detected patterns that lined up with real events. For example, emotional tone transitions from anxiety and restlessness, 2003 to 2011, to increasing balance and acceptance, 2016 to 2026. I've occasionally tried interpreting individual dreams. I never found the results very convincing. Individual dream interpretation often feels like a just-so story. One dream can mean almost anything, but hundreds of dreams start to reveal patterns. Across 2 decades, the data reveal a progression from external struggle to internal equilibrium, said one of the models. Individual dreams are noisy. Longitudinal patterns are signal. Across multiple models, a clear arc emerged. Early dreams about navigating the world, later dreams about navigating myself. Here's an example. The trajectory moves from external world navigation to internal identity navigation to symbolic system level cognition. The models weren't told the story of my life, but they still detected the chapters. Early period dreams emphasize anxiety, responsibility burden, and navigational stress. Later dreams became more observational, reflective, and internally focused. Tone characteristics shift toward curiosity, exploration, and observation. In effect, the dreams shift from survival simulation to integration and synthesis. My brain was using dreams less for survival rehearsal and more for conceptual integration. So, how did I ensure that these results were credible? First, I could compare the findings against real events in my life, information that the models were never given. Second, I ran the exact same prompt on the exact same data set across 3 independent models. 3 different models analyzed the same data independently and arrived at remarkably similar conclusions. Each model told the story slightly differently, but the underlying arc was remarkably consistent. Example. Across 2 decades, dream structure and emotional regulation strongly co-evolve, suggesting maturity in self-awareness and narrative expression. That convergence is what makes the analysis compelling. Different models told different stories about the same person, but they aligned. They coincided with each other and with events in my real life, in my waking world. The models detected emotional shifts that correspond to real transitions in my life. One model determined that emotional tone peaks in 2015 and declines through 2019, followed by a rebound in 2020 through 2021. The models weren't given those events. They inferred them from the dreams. The emotional trajectory in the dreams mirrors the trajectory of my waking life. But Over time, the dreams didn't just change in tone, they changed in structure. Narratives became more coherent and symbolically dense. Here's an example excerpt. Later dreams exhibit structured narrative arcs with internal logical continuity. They had a beginning with development and then a resolution structure. The narrative sophistication increases. There was recurring transport imagery, trains, buses, airports, vehicles, symbolizing life transitions. These strongly suggest transitional identity states, whereas later dreams rely less heavily on literal travel metaphors. This is a major shift. There was also a recurring responsibility for others motif, protecting children and managing others' safety. Here's what not to do. LLMs are excellent at synthesis, but they are not calculators. I found that when these models are pushed into precise quantitative claims, they start to drift or may even confabulate. To test this, I asked each model to identify the most common names in the dream journals. Now, I already have a tool that can compute that exactly, so this was a good stress test. The models got the counts wrong, and some even confabulated names like Taylor Swift, Elon Musk, and Jason Momoa. Those names barely appear in the dataset. Now they do, but not to the number of occurrences that were claimed. That said, you can improve your results if you know how to prompt, but there are better ways to achieve that. Generally, for now, you should use LLMs for pattern detection, not precise analytics. Large personal archives have always contained insight. The difference now is that we can actually mine them. The broader implication is, if you've been journaling for years, you're sitting on a goldmine of insights. Until recently, that dataset was almost impossible to analyze. Now it isn't. The archive you've been keeping might be more valuable than you realized. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. So much for now.